إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فقد قال جل وعلا في قرآنه الكريم والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير حق ويقتلون الذين يأمرون بالقسط من الناس فبشرهم بعذاب أليم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم: اتق الله كما أمر. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وفي حديث آخر عن أبي عبيدة بن الجراح رضي الله عنه: قلت يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أي الناس أشد عذابا يوم القيامة؟ قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: رجل قتل نبيا أو من أمر بالمعروف ونهى عن المنكر. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم ألهمنا مع رشد أمورنا وأعذنا من شرور نفوسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. اللهم تقبلنا واستخدمنا لخدمة دينك خالصة لوجهك يا أكرم الأكرمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We first and foremost thank and praise our Creator, our Nourisher, our Sustainer, Jalla Jalaluhu, Amma Nawaluhu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us to be amongst those who continuously thanks and praise and shows gratitude for all of the favors, the mercies, and all of the conditions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places us in. And we sing our choicest of salat and salam upon our beloved Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. My beloved brothers and sisters, a very grim Friday for the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. However, under all circumstances and all conditions, we show our resilience, we show our gratitude, we show our unity as an Ummah. For just a few hours ago, one of the luminaries of our time, one of the greatest shuhada of our time, one of the greatest individuals standing for justice, standing for human rights, standing for that which is correct according to Sharia and according to that which draws us closer to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, draws us closer to Allah, al-Shaheed, al-Doktor, Hafiz Ismail Haniyah had been martyred. What an individual, what a person. But before we get into the discussion about the great individual that he was, I would like to draw our attention to just 2 points. I might belabor it a bit, however it is important to note of it. And firstly, it is to our own South Africa. Our South Africa that we live in today was given a sense of freedom from the British Crown in the year 1910, where they had said that now you have your own freedom, you are no longer part and parcel of the British Crown. You don't belong to no longer a colonization or a colonizer or a colonization of the British Crown. You are no longer that. Whilst we all understand the impacts and the evils that colonization had on our society as a whole. South Africa, Zimbabwe, many of the African countries, many of the Southern American countries, and so many Eastern countries as well. We all understand the evils that it has spread within our community and society. That even up until today, 100 and odd years later, we are still shackled as a people by the way of life of the Westerners. We are still shackled as a people to the way that they do things. We still do not respect, honor. We still do not understand the importance of the Deen of Islam as it ought to be understood. We are still finding ourselves connecting and trying to find loopholes within our Sharia to make it look comfortable within the Western secular society. Why? All of these are given rise to and birth to by the fact that we were a people that were colonized. We were a people that had our brains, and many of us still have our brains shackled to them, to their way of life. So 1910, yes, South Africa was freed from the British crown. And later on, we find that the people within South Africa, a fascist group, a nationalist group, a racist group pops up. And they bring about certain changes within society. Certain changes that once again goes clearly against the morals, the ethics, and the teachings of Islam. What is that called? Apartheid. What is that called? Racism. What is that called? Bigotry. All of these things were to be found in this community. What did they do? They were a people that believed themselves to be supreme. And why were they supreme? Because it was the God-given right based upon their color, based upon their skin, based upon how they spoke, what they wore, what amount of materialistic gain they had in their bank accounts. And because of that, they were the superior race. They were the people that needed to rule over the Africans. They needed to rule over those that were not the same color as they were. Apartheid. And then you found individuals standing up, fighting against this ideology, standing up, understanding that what they were doing were taking away the God-given rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given us. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of being able to just drink clean water, freedom of education, freedom of going where I please. We understand, on a point of digression, we understand the importance that the Sharia places on the rights that Sharia brings. You cannot go and walk into the land of another person, that's a given. Into the house of another person, that's a given. You cannot speak what you want, also within the bounds of the Sharia. I cannot go and make riba. So yes, express yourself, no problem. Speak as you want to, no problem. But what I cannot do is cross the bounds of the Sharia. Here we, however, find a people that clamp down completely on the majority of the people living in South Africa. And the entire world stands up. The entire world shows their disgust towards it. We remember Sharpeville. We remember that 69 people were killed on that day. Majority of them were shot in the backs. Many kids were killed. 180 people were injured on that day. And this inspires and creates the catalyst to the resistance that was brought to the apartheid government and regime of South Africa. You know who were the few individuals, the few countries, 1, 2, maybe 3, that were standing behind the backs of the apartheid government of South Africa? It was the Zionist state of Israel. The people like the British also, for much of the time, standing behind the backs of the apartheid regime of South Africa. They were standing there, whilst the entire world was in an uproar, whilst the entire world was screaming murder, massacre, killings. What was the response of these few individuals? They have a right to do what they want. It is their country, allowed for them to do and express what they need to do for their safety, for what is right for them. What is moral, my beloved brothers and sisters, to a group and a few in the world has become what is moral to all of us. Sadly. What is ethically correct for a few has become ethically correct for the entire world. And if it is that you do not stand by that, if it is that you do not live your life by that, then guess what? You are shunned, you are thrown out, you are called a terrorist, you are called such and such words and names. Why? Because I do not agree with your opinion. Is it not that when we look at in our own country even, or around the world, you look at the LGBTQI plus movements and how they have moved around the world, a handful of people keeping a gun to our heads, telling us what is right and wrong, and you need to live by it. If you don't, you are shunned from the academic world. You are shunned from the academic scene. You are no longer able to write papers because you are looked upon as a backwater person, an individual that doesn't understand how times have moved along. Likewise, this apartheid government was empowered by those individuals. But because of the global phenomenon of resistance, the global siege that was taking place on the South African apartheid government at the time, they were unable to move any longer. They were unable to get and find a way out. Now we look at Israel, the apartheid Khabib Israel, the filth that they are, the Zionist state, and the way that they are doing things. Whilst the world was in uproar, for 69 young men, women, children that were killed at Sharpeville, 180 individuals that were injured at Sharpeville, do we see the equivalent or the equivalence of it in relation to Gaza and Palestine on a day-to-day basis? Do we see the same uproar from the international community, especially those who were screaming out at the apartheid regime back then, as they are now today? No, my beloved brothers. You look at the Olympic Games that is currently taking place, and you still find them being part and parcel of it. The international pressure forced for the apartheid government of South Africa to be removed and to release themselves from the Commonwealth. It forced them not to partake in sports. It forced and brought a great siege upon these people. But the same is not in relation to Israel. While South Africa only had 2-3 backers, big backers, you find that the entire West stands behind the back of Israel. The entire West. And they are allowed to go on a killing spree as they please and as they wish. They are allowed to murder left, right, and center as they please and as they wish, wherever they want in the world for that matter. Just yesterday, we also found that one of the, and so many other journalists had been killed already. But this individual was bombed from the sky, taken out on his car. A beautiful wife and a young little daughter, Zina. What happens to his family?
What happens to his justice? Where is he? The problem, my beloved brothers and sisters, with our society and our community is in the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is that we will be many closer to the time of Qiyamah. We will be many, but we will be eaten from as if it is a, what's it called? A lunch table, a buffet. Where do you want to eat? You want to eat Syrian today? You want to eat Palestinian? You want to eat Sudanese? You want to eat Libyan? Where do you want to eat? That time is now, my beloved brothers and sisters. And the reality of the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam rings clear in our ears. That the reason that things of this nature can happen and take place is because of two things. That is to be found deep within our hearts, deep within our minds. The colonialist, capitalist, secularist cycle and system has shackled our minds. We have become accustomed to their way of life. And what is that? Hubb dunya. The love of this world. The love of this world that entered into my heart. My son scratches my car and I slap him. I give him a hiding. I scream at him. But if he misses a salah, it is nothing. He loses some of his inheritance and you send him to a psychologist. He cannot recite Quran, it bothers you none. وَكَرَاهِيَّةُ الْمَوْتِ and the dislike of death. I do not want to die. I don't want to meet my Allah. I want to live in this world forever and forever, almost as if this is my Jannah. My beloved brothers and sisters, this is a life of toil, a life of testing, a life in which I need to find my Allah. I need to sacrifice everything that Allah blesses me with to achieve Allah. If it is wealth, I need to sacrifice all my wealth to achieve Allah. If it is health, I need to sacrifice my health to achieve Allah. And if it comes that I need to sacrifice my life, I am ready to sacrifice my life to achieve Allah. How many of us are ready to do so? How many of us can clearly say that today I'm ready to die? Not even I can do it. I'm fearful because of the wrongs that I had done to somebody. Today I have the opportunity to ask maaf, my beloved brothers and sisters. I had wronged my mother and my father and my wife and my sister and my brother. Today you ask maaf. Am I ready to move towards Allah? I cannot die. I haven't achieved my goal of making 1 million rand and putting it into my account. I cannot die because I haven't married the woman of my dreams. I can't die because I haven't achieved my degree. All of these things are materialistic. Whilst our lives in this world is temporal, meant for the hereafter. خُلِقْتُمْ لِلْآخِرَةِ. We have been created for the hereafter, not for this world. We were not created for this world, my beloved brothers and sisters. That reality needs to sink into my heart. Firstly, into all of our hearts. We need to raise men, we need to raise women that will love to give their lives for the sake of Allah. How many of us can claim that we have stood up in the face of tyranny and injustices? How many of us partake in injustices to the next person? You know what is sad, my beloved brothers and sisters? I claim to be a Muslim, but I am still racist within my own country and society. Ek roep nog altyd die swart man op die lelike naam. I still call him that. I still interact with him as if he is not my equal, based upon his bank account, based upon his color. This is the way of Islam. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. May Allah protect and preserve us from that. May we raise a nation that is morally grounded with the teachings of Islam, with the teachings of the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Guided by our constitution, Al-Quran, not our constitution of the world governments and the UN and everyone else out there. Our constitution is Al-Quran first and foremost. We are guided by what Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught us, not by what man came to teach us. My beloved brothers and sisters, we look at the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum wa ardahum, and we will then realize why it is that individuals such as Al-Shaheed, Al-Hafidh, Ismail Haniyah, and many others can give their lives, yearning for it for that matter. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spoke about the dua, or rather the heart of the individual that does not have within it the yearning to die as a shaheed, to die as a martyr. For if he dies a death of jahiliyyah. Why? If I don't want to die as a martyr, giving my life for Islam, that is inevitably what it is requesting and requiring from me. If I am unwilling to give my life for Islam, then what kind of life am I living? What kind of life am I living? So when I am willing to give my life for Islam, whether it is that I die on my bed, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in an authentic narration says that even the individual that dies on his deathbed, but he makes dua to Allah, oh Allah, allow for me to die as a shaheed, as a martyr in your path, then you will die as a martyr, given the reward of a martyr. But you know what? I am too scared to even make that dua. My heart is too weak to even make that dua. How many of us is willing to make the dua, oh Allah, allow for me to die as a martyr in your path? Why? Because there's obviously repercussions to that dua. There is repercussions to that dua. And what is the repercussions? That I will have to be fighting in the path of Allah. Am I willing to fight in the path of Allah? Am I willing to die for Allah's sake? Am I willing to die for this deen of Islam or not? Those are questions that I should ask myself. In South Africa, we live comfortably, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah. And for that, we should thank Allah continuously. And we should never, ever, ever forget the sacrifices of our predecessors. For the many decades and years that they had cemented the relationship of Islam with this community and this society. And it is because of them that I'm living in peace and harmony. To the extent that people coming from Muslim countries speaks about how much peace and harmony there is to be found within our society. But do not be fooled, my beloved brothers and sisters. For Islamophobia is at a rise even within our country. What had taken place in Durban North is not something that is weird. A man goes out, stabs a lady, stabs her child, and stabs the husband. The lady dies, the son dies, and the husband was put into hospital. How much of us spoke about it, knows about it? And later on, a couple of weeks later, a bomb is found at the masjid. We should be aware of what is happening within our society. Now, Ash-Shaheed. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, we should raise our community, our young men, our young women, with the desire of also living the path of Islam. And if it is that I live the path of Islam, then there should be a desire in my heart to die as a martyr, to die as a shaheed, to stand up and say, Allahu Akbar, for Allah's sake. For Allah's sake. two stories to end off. The first, we look at the great commander of Islam, Khalid ibn al-Walid. His entire life he spends on a battlefield. And it is narrated in certain historical books that on his deathbed, he was sobbing like a child. And the reason for him sobbing was because he showed his body. And it is said that there was no portion of his body that did not have a scar of battle on it. Not one place on his body that did not have a scar of battle on it. But he was laying in his bed, and that is where he found his death. Whilst you look at Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, Amirul Mu'mineen, and how our Amirul Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab leads the Fajr Salah in what would be considered as the safest place in the world for the Muslims. But he is killed. He is stabbed by an assassin and dies as a shaheed as well. Our circumstances and scenarios changes and differs, my beloved brothers and sisters. But at times, Allah requires great sacrifices from us. And what we are seeing in Palestine is exactly that. What we see in the life of Hafid al-Shaheed Ismail Haniyeh is exactly that. On the day of Eid, 3 of his sons were also killed. Also by a bomb. It was only just his time. But let it not be that his death is in vain, and that the 40,000 deaths that there have been is in vain. Let us strengthen our himmah and take it upon ourselves to boycott those companies, boycott those individuals that are assisting the apartheid state of Israel. We should also make further dua for Palestine. What should we also do, my beloved brothers and sisters, is not create more sectarianist ideologies within our group. You know what is amazing of this individual's passing? Is that there is no group that is not mourning his death. The Shia, Salafis, Sufis, whatever it is that you want to call yourself, all of them are mourning his death. Because he was an individual that stood for haqq. And I end off with the verse of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that the people that will be given the worst of punishments are those individuals that kills a prophet, or an individual that kills people standing for justice, encouraging good and forbidding evil. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala place us on the right side of history. May we be amongst those that fight for the huquq of the oppressed. Amin ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Please make special dua for all the sick. Auntie Serena is the one who had undergone a major heart operation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant a complete shifa kamilan ajila. We also make dua for Auntie Ilham Titus, who had been diagnosed with cancer, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant a complete shifa kamilan ajila. Sister Tasneem, the daughter-in-law of our beloved Uncle Inva, who is also not doing too well, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant a shifa kamilan ajila. Mustajirra amin ya Rabbal Alameen. Inshallah, after our Salatul Jumu'ah, we will be making Salah al-Ghatib for the Shaheed that had passed on, as well as on tomorrow at Masjid Quds. There will also be one